Great Scott! If my calculations are correct, you are listening to this before your fantasy football drafts have taken place. I've been to the future, and those that followed the advice from the Fantasy Footballer's Ultimate Draft Kit had a spectacular season and withstood many victories. It's almost as if Biff had given each of them a copy of Gray's Sports Almanac. I'd highly recommend heading over to www.ultimatedraftkit.com without any further delay.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome into the show. Thursday, August 3rd, 2017. There is football on the...
I smell something, fellas.
Is it pigskin? Is it... Oh, no, you smell... Oh, come on, Mike.
Oh, I smell
Come on, Mike.
No, I smell football.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you smelled butt.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, that's where I thought you were going, too. If you're watching the YouTube.
Hold on. Before everybody turns off the podcast, Mike has taken...
Butt?
Mike has taken the opportunity. We're talking about the AFC West today, and so... He had snagged an autographed Jake Butt jersey from Pristine Auction, and I walk into the studio today, and gone is Jay Ajayi's jersey off the wall, and in its place, Jake Butt.
That's really where I thought you were going. I thought you were
guys. I am so far above that level of humor.
Goodness gracious, that is the opposite of true.
But what I was going to say is, there's football.
It's football
tonight.
Today. Also, hey, we need to give a big old happy birthday. Tom Brady's 40 today.
Oh,
is he really?
Yeah, today he's 40.
40 years old.
40.
Man, Garoppolo, 10 years away from starting.
Yeah.
Exciting. Welcome into the show. We are talking AFC West breakdown. And great quick question. We're talking about some trading dilemmas, some trading philosophies for commissioners, how to run trades in your league. So we're going to talk through that on the quick question. Wanted to let the listeners know, now that we're 5 days a week, we've got 2 more days of these divisional breakdowns. So today and tomorrow we'll be doing the NFC West, and then it's on to bigger and better things. We're going to have sleeper breakout bust shows. We're going to have our My Guys episodes. There's just going to be there'll be more mock draft episodes. You know, every day of the week, we're going to have something new and special for you to get you ready for the 2017 fantasy football season. So get excited for that. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Baller so you know what's going on. Check out our community at jointhefoot.com. And always feel free to give us feedback over there. We are always listening to how we can make this show better and make your league better. You know, and little Jake Butt doesn't hurt.
Never.
All right, quick question of the day. This one came in on Twitter. He said, hey, Andy, recent subscriber to the podcast. Yeah, this was to me. But you guys get to answer it.
Yeah.
He absolutely loves the podcast. What he does not love is the trading policy in his league.
Uh-oh.
There's a voting policy in place, and every season one guy just campaigns and complains about every trade he feels threatens his playoff spot, resulting in people not even trying to trade anymore. Any suggestions or ideas for balanced trade policies in the league? Hashtag, he signed it, hashtag over it, commish.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So this is the actual commissioner. This is the one with the power.
That's right.
I like it. So, I mean, I'm trying not to get my blood boiling here at the beginning of the show, but here's the deal. Why do we still have voting and these waiting periods and things in fantasy football? And my answer to that is, well, that's how we've always done it.
Right.
That doesn't make it right. It's a waste. It makes the game worse. And we have taken a look at that in our league of record. And we've completely eliminated the waiting period. You make a trade with someone, we're all big boys and big girls. Sometimes a trade may not seem fair, but guess what? They made the trade. These two people have agreed that this is a fair and equal trade. So just because me as a third party may not like what's going on, it's irrelevant. I'm not part of that trade.
I will say this. There's a slight difference in the type of league you're playing in. So if you're in a fresh league that's got some vets and some noobs, you know, there's 3 or 4 people in the league that maybe this is their first time playing, then having a trade window where there's voting can kind of make sense, and that's the only situation. So like we say this all the time, if you haven't heard us say it, you only veto a trade for collusion. You don't veto a trade because you think it's lopsided, right? That's it. It's collusion or bust. But I will say there is one slight other thing that I would be willing to vote a veto on, and that would be taking advantage, not collusion, but taking advantage of someone who doesn't know at all what they're doing yet. So, you know, if news comes out that one half knows something and the other, you know, doesn't know yet, then that's ridiculous. Or
so you're saying hypothetically, if Jordy Nelson tore his ACL and then the other player goes and makes a trade offer, sends Jordy Nelson for, you know, Julio Jones.
Yeah, takes advantage of an owner that doesn't know. That, to me, I would vote no on.
But the thing is you can put that power in the commissioner's hand to protect that type of thing. Or institute, if you want a veto policy, maybe it makes people feel better because the commissioner doesn't have all the power. Make it unanimous. If every person in the league simultaneously agrees that the Jordy Nelson, who's injured for Julio Jones trade, is wrong, then at least you have a policy that doesn't put the power, you know, in a couple people's hands to judge the value of a trade. Because Mike said it. If the trade seems lopsided, we've seen this many, many times in our years and years of playing, because they can go the other direction.
We get things wrong.
Yeah, I mean, all the time.
It's fantasy football. It's really, really hard to get everything right. Nay, impossible. So, I mean, there was a trade.
Perception is not always reality.
There's a trade that comes to mind in our league of record that involved, I believe it was A.J. Green, and we thought, oh, my goodness, the person who traded away A.J. Green just got hosed. But, in fact, they got a whole bunch of really awesome startable pieces. And you're like, oh, well, maybe
it worked
they
out
didn't
well.
Actually lose that trade, and I should just shut my mouth.
Yeah, and here's a pro tip for a lot of leagues, because I think there's a lot of listeners that say, okay, my league doesn't have the same problem as this person that contacted you on Twitter. You know, they only veto for collusion. But pro tip is get rid of the waiting period. That doesn't mean you're getting rid of votes. You can vote every time. You know, what we do is, you know, what you can do is you have a trade go through. It's instant, okay? Then a poll goes up for voting. And if it turns out that it's unanimous, or that, you know, half the league has a huge problem, whatever your policy is, then you can retroactively undo it. But the waiting period causes major problems when it comes to waiver wire timelines.
Thursday
games. And all of a sudden there's like this, with a 24-hour waiting period, I feel like there's like 36 hours where I can actually make a trade, and otherwise it's like, okay, now I'm too close to this game, or I don't know how the waivers went, things like that.
The NFL wasn't the same. Mike was saying we do it because we've always done it, but the NFL didn't have Thursday night games and Sunday night games and 2 Monday night games on a certain week, and waiver wire periods going through the way they do, and fab budgets. Eliminating that barrier to trading is what this listener was asking. He's saying, hey, how do I incentivize people to trade? Well, don't make it so burdensome, and don't tuck it into a tiny little window every week where you have to fight tooth and nail to actually get something through.
Yeah, and just stare. If there's one guy that's always the problem, you go up to him, you put this podcast on, you stare him deeply in the eyes, you click play.
Lovingly.
Maybe rub his cheek with the back of your hand.
Passionately.
Listen to this.
Buy him a Jake Butt jersey.
News and notes from around the league.
And when you hand it to him, you say, I'm not saying anything, but I'm just saying.
Just saying. Before we jump into the news, I just want to tease something on this show.
Okay.
Footland.
Not another haircut.
No, I can't get much more off of the hair without looking like Jason.
Ooh, ouch. Let's just stick to the weight problems and leave my hair alone, okay?
His smile curled quick on that one.
So, Footland, this Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, there's going to be a very exciting announcement regarding this show and the fantasy footballers. So I just want to make sure everyone is staying tuned and staying on pins and needles.
Cool.
For this announcement.
Get on the pins and the needles?
Yeah, well, safely, as safe as possible. You need to, your entire body needs to be on the bed of nails for it to be safe.
That's right. Okay, so
Science.
Big announcement coming up.
Yes.
All right, football tonight, I think.
Well, it's kind of
Sorta.
kind of football.
Blaine Gabbert is your
football.
starter. So no football tonight.
All right, updating Sterling Shepard news. Yesterday we talked about it live on the show. The news broke on the show about his ankle injury. Things looking good. Diagnosed with a low ankle sprain, also known as what I had every other day I played basketball growing up. So the tears may have been for naught, but that's the good news for Sterling Shepard. We had somebody commented that sometimes we are not as sensitive to player injuries as they would like us to be, and I kind of understand that criticism. Excuse me.
Yeah, you're dying right over here.
I kind of understand that because in fantasy, I feel like we have the responsibility to quickly turn our attention to the implications of injury.
Sure.
And
which always benefits someone else.
Which benefits someone else. And I don't think the criticism was more on that. I think it was more on, like, the way we make light of, I don't know, Eric Ebron or Carlos Hyde or those players that just keep getting hurt. But, those situations are ones where I think we're all reflecting on the collective memory of every player in fantasy football that has to deal with those type of things. But we're very happy. I mean, yesterday, the Sterling Shepard news had us in a bad mood. So he's okay. Will Fuller. Not as okay. Suffered a broken collarbone on Wednesday. Expected to miss 2 to 3 months. Does this help or hurt Hopkins?
It helps Hopkins. I mean, Hopkins is a volume receiver. I gave Hopkins – I only bumped him up 5 receptions because I'm expecting Fuller – I took 5 games away from Fuller, which was about 20 receptions, and I moved some of those to Hopkins' direction. When we saw Hopkins as a dominant receiver, it was because of his market share. He was the
target share.
Yes, his target share, his market share. It was because he dominated that. And so if Fuller is out, Fuller is clearly their next best wide receiver, and I think that just will mean you've got to rely more on Hopkins. And I'm the anti-Hopkins guy here. I think he's one of, if not the most drafted player so far up to this point, but this does bump him up. I think he's up to my wide receiver 17.
You don't even like Anthony Hopkins.
Don't you say that.
Ryan,
Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, that's very true. Jalen Strong, Braxton Miller. Do we have any interest in these fellas?
I do think Jalen Strong has an opportunity. I mean, there's been a little bit of buzz about him, and with this injury, he'll have an opportunity to prove that he's worthy of being a first or second round draft pick. He flashed in the red zone at times, but yeah, opportunity there. I'll be really interested. It seems like things are trending towards Watson and Kaiser maybe starting the season as the starters on both of these franchises. So as a fantasy player, look, the unknown is more exciting than the known of Tom Savage and Cody Kessler. So I'm excited if those opportunities happen. I'm not going to read too much into the upside, but at least it exists, whereas I don't feel like it exists with Tom Savage, unfortunately. All right, big news this morning, and again, you might have more information by the time you hear this than we do. Ryan Tannehill exited Thursday's practice today. Non-contact left leg injury, the left knee. The team is currently, according to Shepard, they're fearing the worst. This is the knee, just so people understand. This is the same knee that he injured last year. He had a partial tear of the ACL, and he chose, instead of having surgery, to have stem cell treatment and to basically rehab the injury. Now, I was on Twitter this morning, and it was absolutely incredible because 5 minutes before he was hurt, beat writers or the Miami Twitter, I don't remember who it was, said.
Were they saying something very positive?
They said, Ryan Tannehill just scrambled for X amount of yards. Let's stop talking about this knee. That was the exact quote. Like, don't worry about the knee. And one of the medical doctors on Twitter said, hey, the partially torn ACL is not a problem until it's a problem. Like, that was the reaction to that tweet. And 5 minutes later,
it's a problem.
It's a problem, and we don't know the implications. Jason, you were doing some research into Matt Moore and how Tannehill, Matt Moore affected that offense. What did you find if Ryan Tannehill misses time?
There were big shifts, and granted, it was only 3 games last year, but we saw what does Ryan Gase and what would the game plan shift to?
Adam Gase?
Yes, Adam Gase. What would the game plan shift to with Ryan Tannehill gone? And what we saw last year was a major uptick in carries for Jay Ajayi. Now, his total production was actually less per game fantasy-wise because the team didn't score as many touchdowns in those games. However, you're talking about a guy that went from 16 carries a game to 22 carries a game in the 3 games with Matt Moore, and he averaged over 100 yards a game during those games. What I was also fascinated with was how was Matt Moore targeting receivers. Devontae Parker was about the same, but with the difference between Jarvis Landry and Kenny Stills was pretty drastic. Jarvis Landry was on pace for 97 receptions, and his pace with Matt Moore would have been 80. So that's a significant difference. And
that seems corollary to the run dependency.
Right, exactly. But
and Matt Moore also, if I'm remembering correctly, Matt Moore goes deep.
Yes, he does. And Kenny Stills, in those last 3 games, he caught a touchdown in every single one of those games. 3 of his 9 touchdowns came with Matt Moore. So that running game to bring the defense up and drop that bomb over the top, Kenny Stills,
it changes the landscape for Miami. It really does. Because I think
Matt Moore's a competent quarterback, though.
No, he is. He is a competent quarterback, but I think that there was something with Tannehill and his evolution that at least I think it offered more upside with Adam Gase and Tannehill growing than Matt Moore does. Like Matt Moore, I believe he can have some solid games. I think this team can still be a pretty good team. And you wonder, let's say you find out Tannehill isn't playing, Matt Moore has more time in camp, preseason, the offense, instead of coming in at the back of the season where it's like, okay, let's protect him, let's hand the ball off, maybe it doesn't swing that far.
Yeah, and so far right now, I'll just call him Mr. Armando because I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but from the Miami Herald, great beat writer, he said they're hoping for the best, but sources are saying after the examination, the team is fearing the worst.
Like this is full on,
but we don't know.
Like, Sam Bradford, that happened to him, right? Where like he got hurt and then right away the next preseason got hurt again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Alshon Jeffery, shoulder injury, missed his 3rd practice in a row on Thursday. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to overread into it.
This is an odd start to the offseason, though, because all of the injury-prone players have at least shown some of their injury-prone nature with, Jordan Reed and Eric Ebron and Alshon Jeffery and John Brown. These are all players that
Keenan Allen off the field this week. Just let him go. Let him take a vacation.
We're going to talk a lot about Keenan Allen on today's show. Couple of updates for you. Steelers 3rd-round running back James Conner, AC joint sprain in the shoulder, so not a massively severe injury. We are looking at that Lev Bell handcuff situation with Conner and Toussaint. And then I threw this one in there because I wanted to illustrate what I said on the show the other day. Baltimore Sun just reported Buck Allen is, quote, having a very nice camp. For those worried about additions to the backfield, this is what I was saying the other day. I don't think there'll be additions to the Baltimore backfield because I believe Buck Allen will fill a depth role on that roster. And with West, Woodhead, and Taliaferro at fullback but able to take short yardage carries, I think this team has what they need.
Well, it gets cold in Baltimore, and someone needs to keep Terrence West's seat nice and warm from when he's on the field.
Yeah.
Buck Allen can do that.
Yeah.
Buck Allen having a nice camp being news shows how bad it's been in Baltimore. This is the best they can come up with right now.
All right. You guys want to get divisional?
Yes.
Let's get divisional.
All right, we're going to start out with the Kansas City Chiefs, 12-4 last year. I have an article that I am finishing up with 30 bold or a bold prediction per team.
But are you really finishing?
I am.
It?
No, I'm adding to it. It's look, there's a time to release these things, Mike, and I have the entire AFC done, and I'm working on the NFC, and I want it all as one big package.
We're all very excited for this article.
I've been waiting for months.
Stop. You think I want to release that gem of an article back in June? Come on.
Oh.
It's timing.
Savvy.
Yeah. This is like a Christmas Day movie release. You hold on to it for a little while.
Let's get that Oscar buzz. You got to wait till it's Oscar season.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm angling here for.
Do we qualify for the Emmys yet? Come on, Emmy. If you're out there, Emmy.
If you're out there, are you talking to a person?
Yeah, Emmy. That's he or she gives the awards out. They're the Emmys. Come on, Mike.
Mike doesn't know this stuff. All right, the Chiefs are 12-4 last year. My bold prediction for the Chiefs, I'm sticking with it. Even though I wrote it, like 6 months ago, like you said. Look, I don't like the way the schedule looks for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think their opportunity to get off to a strong start. They're a well-coached team. I'm not going to say it can't happen, but my prediction is that Alex Smith and Spencer Ware are not starters at their position at some point during this year. And so the drafting of Pat Mahomes, the high-level investment, the drafting of Kareem Hunt, what his ceiling is talent-wise, and the fact that Kansas City, I mean, they start the year, we're just going to kick it off. You're going to go to New England and you're going to play. Okay, so just go play in New England. Then you got Philly and Los Angeles and Washington. You're in Los Angeles.
So
Chargers, not Rams.
But then Houston,
either way, it's
Houston,
3-1.
Pittsburgh, Oakland, Denver. I just don't like the first 8 games.
Okay.
I think their opportunity to get off to a poor start is there. I think the investment by the front office in these younger pieces because of the cap situation. I just want to warn people that, look, I traded Alex Smith in a dynasty league to get Joe Flacco. Okay, now, all things being equal, I'd rather start Alex Smith week to week than Joe Flacco, unless Alex Smith isn't starting. And that was my concern. I needed insurance for Andrew Luck. I went and got a guy that I know is going to start the whole year for their team. And
That's fair.
I have some concern there. So
you'll be sad when Alex Smith is starting for the Cardinals next year.
well, maybe not.
Just saying.
Better than Drew Stanton.
But
Yeah.
so Alex Smith, the last 2 years, this is why we talk about Alex Smith is the perfect streaming waiver wire quarterback. The last 2 years, he has been a quarterback 1 42% of the time. I mean,
That's pretty good.
he gives you duds.
That's crazy.
But in the right matchups, and just for some context, Matt Stafford 47%, Carson Palmer 45%. So Alex Smith is always there on the waiver wire for you to grab when you see him in a good positive matchup. In which, I mean, some of those are those games you listed are positive matchups. He's not a guy you have to draft, but he's always there, and he can give you some points.
Yeah, I think the big stories with the Chiefs, you've got 2. You have the Kareem Hunt, Spencer Ware battle, and you have Tyreek Hill, what can he become with Jeremy Maclin gone.
Yes.
So with those, I'll start with the running backs. I do not see a world in which Spencer Ware is not involved. They have a good running back that knows the system, that has been efficient for them. And this is a team that has always, and I believe will always, Andy Reid coached teams will always be productive for running backs in fantasy football. I think that Kareem Hunt will be involved, and I think he'll be involved from day one. You don't see Spencer Ware as a workhorse. You don't see him as the guy you want to hand the keys to the kingdom to. That wasn't their intent. Jamal Charles got injured. Jamal Charles left. They trade up for Kareem Hunt. They need him to be involved. They want him to be involved. But I think it will be a 50-50 timeshare, and both of these guys are going to have value. I think even for where each of them are going in the draft, they're a worthy pick right now.
Spencer Ware had the 18th or tied for the 18th most carries in the league. Also, the receiving game. He had the 6th most receiving yards for a running back. He had 15 fewer receiving yards than Devontae Freeman, who is heralded as one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. And here's what happened to Spencer Ware, because I know everyone feels disappointed in his production last year for fantasy. But we're going to play a little game. Not really a game, but just these guys had more rushing touchdowns than Spencer Ware. John Kuhn, Jeremy Langford, Sean Drone, Andy Dalton. I mean, this was the problem. Despite him getting carries inside of the 10, he had 18 carries inside of the 10. I mean that speaks to there should be some
regressing to the mean.
Yeah, returning to. Yeah,
But
I don't know how we want to phrase that now.
You
but
have the variable of Hunt now in the mix, though, because do you expect 18 carries inside the 10 for Spencer Ware again?
Yes, I expect him to be the primary runner.
If you look at how they used him the year before, when he only got 72 carries, he got 6 touchdowns in those 72 total carries. He can get the job done. I think Hunt will help him there, and I do expect him to have maybe not 18 carries, but I expect him to be the main goal.
Well, let me put you in the spot here then. Hunt in the 8th or Ware in the 4th, because that's where they're going.
I will take Hunt.
I'll take Ware.
I think both are good values. I would take.
See, I would lean the Ware side. I think any of these battle situations, there's high upside, high risk. Same situation with drafted Carlos Hyde in case something goes sideways there.
Sure.
Problem. Same situation with P. Ryan and Rob Kelly. Same situation here with these two backs. And it could pay off in spades, because if you draft Spencer Ware and you get him late, and he is a bell cow because, hey, they're going to use Kareem Hunt more in the passing game. They're going to give the, positive regression to, the touchdowns for Spencer Ware. It's interesting. It's an interesting piece of the puzzle. This is not a very good offensive team statistically last year, despite being 12-4. 19th in the league in passing yardage, 15th in rushing yardage. So from a fantasy perspective, not as good as what they were able to do in actuality in winning these games. Now, Travis Kelce was a headliner in fantasy last year, led tight ends 70-plus yards a game. One of the things I thought would be interesting to look at is, how did Travis Kelce perform when Tyreek Hill had big games?
Okay.
So I went and looked and said, hey, look, how many games did Tyreek Hill have 50 or more receiving yards? And there were 6 of them. Well, in those games, Travis Kelce averaged 17 fantasy points a game, as opposed to 11.9 in games where he did not pop, where Tyreek Hill did not have big games. So it didn't negatively impact Kelce to further involve Tyreek Hill in the offense. Now, Hill, snap percentages, those things are going up for him this year. All the reports out of camp is that he's taking his game to the next level. Very precise route runner, but you're still Alex Smith's number one.
Sure, and what I looked at for Travis Kelce was how is he performing with and without Maclin, because the first 9 games of the season, Travis Kelce was giving you an average of 5 receptions and 52 yards. That's fine for a tight end, for a fantasy tight end. That's not fine for a tight end that's going to be drafted in the 3rd round. It's his run, which were games 10 through 15. That started when Maclin went out. And then that's when Maclin missed 3 of those 4 straight 100-yard games. Macklin's second game back, though, Maclin had a big game, and Travis Kelce was back down to 3 for 41. I mean, I think there was a pretty strong correlation. So the question will be, is there a number 2, not like Tyreek Hill, obviously, but he's the one, like, can Chris Conley or Albert Wilson step up, or have they finally made the transition to say, okay, Travis Kelce is going to be the guy that we're going to give 10 targets?
Look, I don't think you have to spend an extended amount of time talking about the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City. That may be the question mark that we can't answer, but you have to approach that the same way we've approached it the past few years. It was Maclin and somebody else that would score every once in a while. That's how I view it.
Yeah, you've got 2 weapons there. It's Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and that's pretty much it. And the reality for Tyreek Hill is, I think he's going to be more involved than we have currently this offseason expected him to be. The 4 games that Maclin missed, he had 7 receptions a game. I don't expect him. I mean, that's a pace of 112 receptions. That's not going to happen. But he's got the talent every time he touches the ball to take one to the house. So,
and the last thing I'll say for Kelce, for those who are, you're like, I'm drafting Travis Kelce in the 3rd and the 4th round. Here's his touchdowns of his career: 5, 5, 4.
Yeah, I'm not drafting.
He does not score.
So I love Kelce. I love the talent. I'm with him. I'm with Zeus. But just saying, be careful where you are spending a draft pick on Travis Kelce.
Yeah. So before we get to the next team,
the Raiders,
we definitely want to thank Pristine Auction. We gave him a shout out earlier for the awesome signed Jake Butt jersey. You can get anything you want. We also had we had a patron send us the Mike Tyson Punch Out framed
with the NES controller.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Sweet.
But I just wanted to point out, like, that's the level of items that are on Pristine Auction.
That's the depth.
Yeah, thank you. The depth. Jake Butt. This guy's done nothing in the NFL.
He's an injured rookie.
But he looks great on the wall.
He looks fantastic.
And Tyreek Hill, aforementioned, we just gave away a signed and autographed. See?
Yes.
Doubled up. He did it 2 times. No, a signed Tyreek Hill jersey. We just sent it out to a listener who won one of our recent contests. We picked that up on pristineauction.com. These guys are the absolute leaders, and they just added a new feature. If you pick up a jersey on there, you have the option of adding custom framing to that jersey. So if you pick up that stalwart favorite player of all time, you can just have them custom frame it. It's cheaper and easier than having you take it down to the local framing shop.
They may make it look pristine.
Oh, I see what you did there. So check them out, PRISTINE auction.com. Sign up for free and let them know the footballers sent you.
Yeah, and let them know about our punny comments. The Raiders were 12-4 as well. The Raiders. Derek Carr leading the ship, leading the charge, freshly paid. A team that lost Latavius Murray, a team that gained Marshawn Lynch.
Did they lose Latavius Murray?
Well,
He had 12 touchdowns.
And one of the best short yardage backs in the league. When you start to dig into the numbers on Latavius Murray.
But is he, or was it the line?
Well, that is the question, right? Jared Cook also joining the franchise. Cordero Patterson is on board as well. One of the better offensive lines in the league, obviously. Protected Derek Carr well. And
no one protected David Carr.
No, never did.
Sorry.
So Marshawn is back.
He is.
I also think there's a great wide receiver conundrum in Oakland because you have the reality that, yet again, Michael Crabtree outscored Amari Cooper, 192 to 185. In the back half of the year, Amari Cooper was about 8 points better. But these guys, they don't go next to each other in the draft. And so, you know, what is the decision-making process for a fantasy owner? I mean, Jason, you picked up Amari Cooper early in a best ball league. You're waiting for him to have that double-digit touchdown year, and obviously that is well within the realm of possibility. He's super talented. He's missed on a few opportunities. It seems like he should be the guy to go to, and yet Seth Roberts gets those end-zone targets for some reason despite dropping a bunch.
Yeah, I was in a best ball league, and if you've had Amari Cooper, you have experienced the up-and-down nature. So I'm more fine with him there than in a redraft league because he does have a tendency to disappear. He'll have the major booms and the busts.
I just wanted to bring some stats to what you're saying.
Sure.
63% of the time, Michael Crabtree was a 1 or a 2. 43% of the time, Amari Cooper was a 1 or a 2. So that's the boomer bust thing you're talking about.
Right. But one of the things that I really like when I look at Cooper, obviously he's extremely talented, and I don't usually like drafting guys where
their ceiling.
At their ceiling, where it's like, okay, if he does what we hope he does, then he's just matching the draft price. So that gives me hesitation in redraft. That being said, last year, so rookie year, 0 red zone targets, right? Last year, 7. Now, he scored 0 touchdowns, but he also led the league, tied with Brandon LaFell, with 4 pass interference calls in the end zone. So that's 4 robbed. I mean, they threw him the ball in the end zone 4 times where, he didn't have the opportunity to catch it, and the team got the ball at the 1-yard line, and go figure, Latavius Murray had 12 touchdowns. He also caught a touchdown at the very back of the end zone where his toe hit the white line, and it was ruled out. Obviously, you can't just be like, well, give him those 5 touchdowns.
Right.
But those were opportunities that were there, and had he, if you had added 5 touchdowns to his numbers last year, where would he be drafted?
He would be fantastic. But so in the Ultimate Draft Kit, we teamed up with Matt Harmon, writer for NFL.com, because he does this study called the reception perception, where he looks at how does a receiver do just running routes. Are they actually a good wide receiver? And he also measures things like contested catch rate. Mm-hmm. Well, Amari Cooper's contested catch rate, bad. And he put out the hypothesis that perhaps this is why when you're talking about those 10-zone targets that Amari Cooper is not getting them. Amari Cooper's senior year, he had a 50% contested catch rate. That's below average for college. Since being in the NFL, he is below the 38th percentile in contested catch rate. Meanwhile, Crabtree tied for third best last year with an 85% success rate for contested catches. And that's
makes
just
perfect sense.
That's just a hypothesis right now. But when windows are tight, when you have nowhere to go and you can't just break away, that makes some sense.
You see he added 10 pounds of muscle? I wonder if that's part of the motivation there is.
Or is that the report?
No. That's just the reality. If you see a picture of
sure.
him as well, you'll see him. He's thick. I wonder if that's part of the equation. He wants to be more competitive on contested catches.
That would make sense. It's a smart hypothesis, but I think we can rule out that hypothesis rather quickly, considering that Derek Carr still throws the ball an ungodly amount to Seth Roberts. Does Seth Roberts know how to catch the ball? Stop
Carr
throwing.
thinks he does.
Stop throwing to Seth Roberts.
I mean, we can say what we want, but Carr's,
I had someone tweet me and be like, "Oh, but Seth Roberts left this year," and I was so excited for a second. I was like, "What? Did I miss that?" No, he's still there.
and just to point out for Michael Crabtree, yes, he was a wide receiver 1 or 2, 63% of the time, and he was quite safe. I mean, you're talking he busted less on a weekly basis, and we're saying a wide receiver 4 or worse. He busted less than Julio Jones and Mike Evans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was a great pick. He's still going way too late in drafts. I don't see why drafters are just putting everything on Amari Cooper on this projection. Meanwhile, Crabtree's over here like, I've been doing it for 2 years now with the Raiders. What do I have to do?
Amari Cooper is going in the 2nd round, Michael Crabtree in the 5th round.
He's a great value. Draft Michael Crabtree and be cautious with Cooper. I mean, that's if you're in a redraft league, that's the best advice.
If it fell this way, are you okay having both of them on your team?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not. And part of that is what we're going to get into now. I want to talk about Derek Carr because I think this show in particular is lower on Derek Carr than the populace.
Yes.
Than the common thought, than the voice of public opinion who happily drafts Derek Carr.
But Andy.
Yes.
But he's so young, and he's been so good, and he's only going to get better.
Well, you could be right, but I don't think he's the 6th quarterback off the board.
What?
Better.
No, he is the 6th quarterback.
Well, I don't think he should be.
There you go.
And the reality is that, yes, he missed the game at the end of the year, and the efficiency, the lack of interceptions, what your eyes told you is how good of a quarterback he is. But in fantasy, he had some, he didn't really improve on the core fantasy numbers last year other than reducing mistakes. And so I like Derek Carr, but I think it would be a jump to call this a super prolific offense yet. And that adds to the question of Crabtree plus Cooper. Do you want them both on your team? 6th in the league in rushing yards, middle of the pack in passing yards, 13th in the league. That's good, but it's not like Green Bay where you're saying, okay, I can have Jordy Nelson and I can put Devontae Adams, and I don't even think twice about it. I think we all want Oakland to be that, and we all love rooting for this team. They're young, they're fun, they're exciting, they have a great opportunity. But I think people are jumping the gun. Like we have a kind of a warning there for Derek Carr purchasers that, look, you might want a refund by midseason if you lock yourself into Derek Carr with an early draft pick. That might not be your best case scenario in the draft.
Derek Carr's final 4 division games, he scored 11 or fewer fantasy points per game. He didn't get to play Denver the second time, but the first time he played them, he put up 7.5 points. I mean, it was bad. And guess what? You have to play all those teams
2 times.
Yeah, so it's the Chargers. And the Chargers last year, I mean, they get Jason Verrett back. I mean, they're a solid pass defense. The Chiefs are well known. The Broncos are well known. It's
not the easiest division to play quarterback.
Right,
in.
and I'm not one to say, well, okay, I'm not going to let a division completely scare me off, but under 11 points or under in every one of those last games. I mean, that's brutal.
All right, we do need to jump into the Broncos.
Okay,
but before we do that, I want to just quickly talk about Marshawn Lynch.
Yes.
Latavius Murray last year was an RB 1 or 2, 64% of the time in that offense. 12 touchdowns. We've talked about that a lot. When you look at a breakdown of how the carries are going to go, if you look at last year, Murray had 195, and both of the other guys, Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington, were in the 80s. I think that's the breakdown you're going to see this year. Around 200 to 220 carries is how I'd break down Marshawn Lynch, with about 80 to 90 carries for the other two guys.
Despite the reports that say they want him under 200?
Yes, despite the reports that they may manage him. Saying he's going to be around 200 to 220, that's what I think the realistic truth is about Marshawn Lynch. If you're looking at that equation, 64% of the time in RB1 or 2, do you think Marshawn Lynch beats that number that Latavius Murray set last year, or is excitement for Lynch kind of like unwarranted?
I think percent of games that he's going to play, I would say he beats that number. I expect he's always been a good goal line back. He's got a great offensive line in front of him, and I think he's going to be put in situations to succeed. The worry with him being, that he left after having a back injury, and he is older. He's 31. The worry is how many games is he going to play? And so, but percent of games played, I think he'll be great. I just worry about that. And since I'm saying you worry about Marshawn Lynch, there's a lot of people out there that say great sleeper candidate, DeAndre Washington. And DeAndre Washington was one of my favorite prospects coming out last year. But I'm a
Jalen Richard guy.
See, I got to throw cold water on both because, okay, Marshawn Lynch goes down. There's DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. Neither one of them is taking over. And, you could be wrong with both, and it could be Elijah Hood, the 230-pound back, getting all the goal line work. So there's too many guys there to say that there is a handcuff. There is no Marshawn Lynch handcuff.
Okay, Denver, let's talk about the Broncos. And let's start in the passing game. I mean, we know that there's a battle, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian. For the quarterback position, I think it's going to be tough sledding for both guys again this year. Now, Siemian had flashes. He had these big games. He could end up being the guy in control of that offense. But I want to talk first about the wide receivers because I think it's hard for people to think about Demaryius Thomas and how they want to think about him. I went back and looked over the last 3 years. The percentage that he was in that wide receiver 1 range, the last 2 years, it was 18% each of the last 2 years. Going back to 2014, he was up at 38%. So you're saying kind of like, okay, he's not prolific. He doesn't always finish as a wide receiver 1. Yet, in the last 3 years, he ranks third best in all of football with 66% of the time being a wide receiver 1 or 2. Only behind Antonio Brown, only behind Odell Beckham Jr. Here's the most consistent player in football over the last 3 years at the wide receiver position. You know the reception totals will be up there. I like taking the flyer on him because I feel like a couple more touchdowns drop his way. All of a sudden, he's a top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, his floor is so high and he's so safe for those early rounds. I really like Demaryius Thomas, and I think he is a little bit safer than Sanders not knowing the quarterback situation because if Paxton Lynch comes in, I think he will rely a little bit more on Demaryius Thomas. That being said,
do you like the ADP of 311?
I do. I mean,
do you like the
band? You're getting him at the 3-4 turn. And I think that's great value for a guy that's outproduced where he's being drafted at the last several years and is still in his prime.
I think that the problem that fantasy players have with Thomas is almost his perception of he's too safe. Like because and I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's what I mean by that is the touchdowns are gone. Like since Peyton Manning, those monster years with Manning, the touchdowns have just absolutely disappeared. The yardage is still there, so it's just safe. You know, it's a nice floor, but the ceiling is gone.
He doesn't have the quarterback to finish as a wide receiver 5. It's not going to happen. Out of the question.
But I want him on my team.
Absolutely.
It's hard. He plays 16 games too. 5 straight years of 16 games. It's hard for me to say the ceiling is completely gone when he had 10, 14, 11 touchdowns
with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, but you do have players that's the hardest to predict total there. If you give a guy 105 receptions, 95 receptions, I still think that possibility exists. But let's step back from that. The way that I've looked at Demaryius Thomas is to kind of add to what you're saying is I've looked at him as a very tall Jarvis Landry now because touchdown totals aren't there for Landry,
right?
But he's so safe. Like people look at Jarvis Landry and say, okay, I got a safe guy on my roster. I can throw him in at wide receiver 2. Demaryius Thomas is my favorite wide receiver 2.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that him dropping to 311, I mean, that's outrageous for a player who.
Well, that's Pryor range. Do you want Pryor or do you want Demaryius Thomas?
Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want Keenan Allen or Demaryius Thomas?
Demaryius Thomas.
Probably
that's
Thomas.
Okay.
a perfect example. You're going, you've got this upside potential if he stays healthy with Keenan Allen, who also isn't a touchdown guy.
But where is the Demaryius Thomas one-handed camp catch to help him compete with Terrell Pryor?
We don't want that.
Gone.
That's right. That hurts, right? Until the draft happens.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk. You guys want to talk running backs?
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
And right in front of the running backs, I want to bring up the offensive line. Because the offensive line was a huge.
I was trying to follow along.
Who are you drafting?
They're right in front of.
That's what I'm saying. They are right in front of the running backs. I mean, I guess technically, if
and you destroyed my pristine pun, and you're going to allow that to fly?
That was beautiful. It was sweet music.
See,
so
there's a different bar. Okay, the high jump
level
is set.
His is a step.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, both of yours is low, but his is lower.
When I think about the teams this
Parallel
offseason
bars.
that have improved their offensive line the most, you know, the Browns come to everybody's mind. I think some of the health with the Chargers until yesterday it seemed like they had improved. But the Broncos, despite the fact that for some reason, and maybe it's because the current trade for Alan Barber that just happened was before their ranking, Pro Football Focus lowered them one spot in their projected rankings for this year. But I don't get it because, I mean, you added Ron Leary, the 22nd ranked guard. You added Alan Barber, who was the 16th ranked guy. You got rid of a 40th ranked guy, and then they got the #1 offensive tackle in the draft, the guy that they wanted. Nobody else had gone when they drafted Garrett Bowles. That offensive line was a major problem last year. You could see it every time you watched the game, and they've improved it. So the running game should be able to, open up a little bit more for C.J. Anderson and maybe Jamal Charles.
You better keep that down.
Well, we might as well throw Stephen Ridley in there too.
Yeah.
Just have a little fun. Look, C.J. Anderson, we all know the story. Started last year for the first 6 weeks, was an RB1 or an RB2. Got hurt. That's been the case.
Yes.
Mike loves it Mike loves him because when you see him on film, he gets the job done. He's heavily involved. He can catch the ball a little bit. There's a really big Matt Kelly article that came out just destroying C.J. Anderson.
To be fair, Matt Kelly hates C.J. Anderson, and part of his defense is, well, look at the backups. Yeah, Devontae Booker stinks. Jamal Charles is
Devontae Booker's hurt.
Yeah,
too.
the article came up before that, but Booker, even when healthy, is not good. Jamal Charles is old, busted. D'Angelo Henderson? I mean, it's C.J. Anderson's job. I mean, his job is very, very safe. I can't argue the health question, but when he's on the field, he produces. He was the RB11 when he went out after week 7, and I don't see.
Yesterday,
I don't see why you wouldn't draft him. Honestly, even with the injuries, I still want him on my team.
Sure, and running back, we know position scarcity. You need him on your roster. Yesterday, we talked about LeGarrette Blount. They're going back-to-back in fantasy drafts. Put me in your, who would you take? You're staring those two guys down. Are you high enough on Blount with the volume that we're talking about, or do you take C.J. Anderson because of the passing game involvement?
It would be Anderson.
What about Abdullah, one of your guys,
or
C.J. Anderson?
Those are two of your guys.
They're 506, 509 right now.
I think I would go Abdullah then. And if I'm staring down both of them, I'm going to go Abdullah.
Okay.
Abdullah's upside. We're going to talk, or we've already talked Lions, but Abdullah. I mean, the more reports keep coming out for Abdullah. If you want to hit the train sound for him, because what was it yesterday that the running back coach has anointed, saying he'll be our featured back.
Any other fantasy surprises you expect from this team? Do you still think Emmanuel Sanders is a value?
Yes.
Is Jake Butt breaking out?
No. And Jake Butt is long-term is going to be a good player. He only fell in the draft because of injuries. But Cecil Lammey, who's very connected to the Broncos, he said that the tight end who is standing out, it's A.J. Derby. So if you want to roll around in the mud and just get absolutely filthy with your tight end.
They don't throw to the tight end.
Just saying that
someone to watch in preseason.
Yes, A.J. Derby is the one to keep an eye on.
All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers.
We go.
You did
the Los Angeles Chargers, 5-11 last year. I want to talk about Keenan Allen right out of the gate.
Sure.
Last year we know that the Chargers were devastated by injury. I think that a lot of fantasy owners are giving them a pass on that season because of that. Because we've seen, Phillip Rivers the last 5 years, he said 3 times inside the top 10. But let's talk about Keenan Allen. Every report, it's glowing. Full speed, right? Quick and explosive is the quote. Back to pre-injury form is the narrative. So, 1, do you buy it? And 2, what does buying it mean in terms of balancing wanting him on your roster and waiting in drafts to get him?
So I want him on my team. It's really tough because his ADP
404.
Like Jason was talking about. I mean, you're not wanting to draft a guy at his ceiling. I don't think 404 is drafting Keenan Allen at his ceiling, but there's
a ton of risk.
There's a ton of risk. However, I just want to point out, Keenan Allen, this is obviously 2 years ago, but when Matt Harmon did his reception perception on Keenan Allen, his success in running routes against man coverage, top 3%. His contested catch rate that season was 82.6%. That was better than Antonio Brown's last year, and that's on one more contested target. I mean, he is really, really, really good. I mean, he is an excellent wide receiver. Maybe the upside because you want like the Terrell Pryor, the big, super sexy touchdowns. That's not Keenan Allen's game, but in short and intermediate, he is absolutely devastating to opposing defenses. But I mean, in the fourth round, I'm okay going in on that, and I know you guys are not.
It's just difficult to reconcile limited success like that, limited metrics, where never had a year where he had more than 77 receptions to finish the season. 8 touchdowns, he did have that, but that's going back to 2013, right? So since then, 4.40. It's a long time to wait on that potential. Now, I believe in the competitor that Keenan Allen is. I believe in the quarterback. You talk about the difference between Demaryius Thomas and Keenan Allen. You've got Phillip Rivers throwing him the ball. Those are great signs. You also have Mike Williams' injury. We don't even know if Williams is going to play in 2017. So every opportunity is there for Keenan Allen. It's a risk-reward thing. I'd love him in the 5th round. I love him in the 6th round. He's bona fide steal at that rate. I just don't know if I'm willing to jump in yet. But the reports are positive. Maybe I'll be on board.
Have you seen that beard?
The beard's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
The beard is back. I want to talk.
You need to wrap that around his knees. Keep him safe.
I want to talk about the head coach
for
a second because I think it reflects
Where
on
are you drafting him?
Melvin Gordon. I'm drafting, if you're playing ESPN and you've got the head coach position, I think the Chargers are going to be all right. But Anthony Lynn, if you remember him when he was a running back, then he was a running backs coach forever. Then he took over the last few years as offensive coordinator and assistant head coach for the Buffalo Bills. Wherever he has gone, the running game is great. Last year, the Bills' running game was as good as it could get. They were the best, the most efficient. They were the tops. Now he goes to a team where when they drafted Mike Williams, to me, I thought I made a big mark on my notes when I was watching that said they want to run the ball. I know that might seem weird with drafting a wide receiver, but Mike Williams was the best run-blocking receiver I've seen in a long time. They bring in Anthony Lynn, and those guys make such a difference in the running game, and nobody knows that better than a longtime running backs coach who comes in. I think the offense will be prolific, but this is what, I've said Melvin Gordon has the highest potential to bust in the first round because of his inefficiency. But I also see the upside with Melvin Gordon. He was locked and loaded as one of the best players last year. He finished the year as the 7th best running back despite not playing 3 games. With Anthony Lynn coming in a tough division, I think they're going to run the ball more, give Melvin Gordon all the opportunity. And I will be drafting Melvin Gordon this year despite what I've said about his risk.
Whew. All right. And I see the upside as well, but here's my problem with Melvin Gordon. There was 11 running backs last year that had 250 or more carries. 9 of those had over 1,000 yards because when you have 250 carries, getting 1,000 yards should be easy.
Unless you're Todd Gurley.
Unless you're Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon. Now, what saved Melvin Gordon's fantasy season was touchdowns. He had 5 touchdowns from the 1-yard line. Now, are those going to happen again? I don't know. And you think, well, Melvin Gordon in the receiving game. Well, for running backs, he was 23rd in receptions, and he had 33 receptions. And here are 2 other guys that also had 33 receptions. I'm going to give you their yards. Latavius Murray, 33 receptions, 264 receiving yards. Spencer Ware, 447 receiving yards. No, that's fine. Against Ware,
he was historically
maybe that's not fair. But I gave you Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon 192. So Latavius Murray, the rumbling, thumbling Latavius Murray was able to get 50 more receiving yards on the exact same reception. Is Melvin Gordon actually good?
Yes, he is actually good, and you think so too. You ranked him number 9. So we all have him inside of our top 10. His opportunity mixed with the offense is great. Brandon Oliver is just a backup. I mean,
Philip Rivers is excited about Brandon Oliver.
Come on, Mike. That's ridiculous. Brandon Oliver is a backup. He has it printed on his birth certificate.
And that's fine, but Melvin Gordon had no backup last year.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm telling you. Look, if you don't believe that, you need to move him because you've got him very high in your rankings.
Don't tempt me.
I don't think you need to throw so much shade on Melvin Gordon. I don't want to worry people about that. But here's what I want people to know too as we close out today's show and we get into the NFC West tomorrow. If you want to look, we're hitting some of the fantasy highlights. Really, the headlines,
lowlights, Melvin Gordon,
the storylines. Yes, Mike's number 9 running back, Melvin Gordon. The storylines from some of these teams. You're probably saying, "Hey, why didn't you talk about this guy? Why isn't Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry?" We've got a lot of breakdowns on individual players. If you want to see all of that, go to the website. Go check out thefantasyfootballers.com. Check out the Ultimate Draft Kit. 100+ player profiles. We talk about these players on a one-to-one basis. And you can see all of our stat projections, all of the storylines that we see from each and every one of these teams. See interesting things. Look, Tyrell Williams, we didn't talk a lot about him. Sleeper alert. Tyrell Williams was a wide receiver 1 or 2, the same amount as DT or Pryor. DT or Pryor are both third-round picks. Tyrell Williams is a 9th-round pick. There's a nugget for your fantasy roster, okay? And we get into all of that with all these different players in the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. And on the show, obviously, over the next month, we're going to be talking about all of our sleepers, breakouts, busts. Probably not about Melvin Gordon anymore because Mike's going to drive me crazy if we talk about him again.
Fight.
I do have him at number 4, though, so that would be why.
Andy loves sub 4-yard per
No, I just
guys.
like player, and you like guys that are – he was way too healthy for you. So
Yeah.
I would have thought –
I just like
I would have
the good
thought
ones.
Melvin Gordon
I'm
committed –
right in the middle.
I would have thought if Melvin Gordon committed himself like he did last year to be hurt for that last game of the year, that he
You'd
did
rise
that.
on
I'd move him up.
He did
I'd
that
move
for
him up.
you,
That's
Mike.
fair. It's not enough. I need
Is
more.
that why he's number 9 instead of 900?
I need more missed games.
Yeah, well.
He does play for the
Terrible.
Chargers, so there's a good chance.
All right, that is it for today's podcast. I want to remind everybody out there, if you're looking to get into some of those awesome best ball leagues, there's no better place to play than playdraft.com/ballers. You get a free paid entry into a best ball league. Mike, every single week, is doing a live draft with listeners of the show. Best ball is a fun way to basically mock draft for your redraft year, plus win some cash.
Yes, it's not
have
a mock
some fun.
draft.
It's not a mock.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's a double. You get to play, but you also get to see where people are falling.
It's a
you
real
get to play
real
and practice at the same time, and then every Friday we're giving a tip or two on how to play that format. So,
All right, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the morning. See you later.
See you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.